Hello, good morning, everyone. It is good to be with you here in the room. It's good to be with you here online. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. You have to bear with me. If my voice doesn't hold out, it's because I was singing along far too loudly to Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer last night at my friend's wedding. It's that key change. It gets me every time. There we go. So, as Sam mentioned, I may mention CrossFit. I will mention CrossFit right now. Sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. So last week and the weekend, I spent most of my evenings and the weekend watching the CrossFit Games, okay? It's a big deal for me. In my world, I love CrossFit. It's my sport. You know, people like football and that. I like CrossFit. And you're probably all wondering, like, what is CrossFit? Well, I'll tell you a little bit now. You didn't ask, that's fine. So CrossFit is, the games are like the pinnacle. It's like the Olympics, but it happens every year for the sport of CrossFit. And the people that compete are the most elite athletes in the world. In fact, the people that win the CrossFit Games are crowned the fittest on earth. And you might say, well, that's a little bit arrogant. But it's because they test all domains of fitness. Like, it's not just one thing that these people are good at, it's everything. Like technical stuff and strength in Olympic weightlifting, gymnastics, endurance, like cardio, speed, agility. Like, these people are just insanely good at everything, and they are definitely the fittest on earth. But I was really excited this year, particularly because there's a lot of new athletes that were joining in, new competitors. Seeing how well they were going to do was going to be really exciting. I was following one in particular in her journey in like qualifying for the games and the lead up to it, and it was really exciting because it looked like she may not just qualify and do well, but she might even get on the podium. And she is particularly exciting and amazing because she is only 17 years old. I want to show you a little video of her shortly because to show how incredible this is. So her name is Mal. She's American. She's 17. She is incredible. And actually at the CrossFit Games, not only did she do really well in terms of the qualification process and the events like leading up to the games, she smashed it at the games, and she won an event, which is a significant and very difficult thing to do. But she then became the youngest person to ever win an event at the CrossFit Games. So this is Mal.
What's it like to win your first arena event?
I thought it was really cool to win it in the Coliseum, and it was a really good way to end the day. I felt really good. I mean, I still am kind of in shock, but I'm really happy. So, thank you.
She's 17. Like, look, did you see her? Did you see her muscles? Oh, my goodness. I don't know what you were doing when you were 17. I know, I'm not even going to tell you what I was doing when I was 17, but I was not like that. And I really hope one day I might be something like that, but I'm probably not going to be. She's incredible. So her and her coach, right, they have, you know, like principles and things to kind of live by and train by. And one of those things that they have is that she is in her lane. Like, she is staying in her lane. She is running her own race. She's not getting herself, like, concerned about bettering herself and pushing herself. You know, she gets compared to another 17-year-old athlete that's on the field as well, and she's like, no, it's not about what she's doing, it's about my race. I'm in my lane, which is really good, and it clearly works and pays off for her because she did really, really well at the game. She came 7th overall, second fittest woman in America. Like, really impressive for your rookie year at the CrossFit Games. So it's great that she has this strategy of in her lane. She even got a hashtag. Everyone's got a hashtag these days, right? But in this event that we were talking about on the video that she won, she was in her lane. She was focused on what she was doing. She was doing really well. But every now and again, she looked across to see what the reigning champion, Tia-Clair Toomey, was doing and where she was in the race to make sure that she was beating her. She was running her race, but she would benchmark where she was at based on where her greatest rival was to make sure that she was ahead, or at least keeping up, so that she could push even further to make sure she stayed on the gas pedal to make sure she won the event. So why am I telling you all this, other than the fact that I just love talking about CrossFit? But it's because I think it raises an interesting question about comparison. You know, you may be aware of the pitfalls of comparison. We certainly talked about it from this platform before. You know, you may have heard how it's a trap. You know, we can easily fall into that. Comparison can steal our joy. That it's just a generally unhealthy way of going about life. And yet, comparing ourselves to other people is something that affects us at whatever age and stage of life we're at, okay? You know, I think the reason it does is because maybe actually we quite like doing it sometimes, you know, because when we compare ourselves to maybe to someone who's maybe not doing as well as us, it makes us feel better. Yeah. We don't like admitting it, but let's be honest with ourselves. We all have those moments where we think, oh, okay, I'm not doing too badly because at least I'm not. Yeah, let's get real this morning, real talk. You know, it doesn't even have to be like mean or intentional like that. It's often just those little fleeting thoughts that we get like, oh, at least I wasn't the last person to finish that workout, or at least I didn't come bottom in the class, or at least my child can do this, or at least I managed to get there on time, or at least I didn't get made redundant, or at least I own my own home, or at least I have a good pension, or at least I made a profit this year. At least, translation, at least there was someone worse off than me. Challenging, hey? So clearly it isn't all that healthy comparison, even when it works to our advantage. It's not really that kind, is it? But we do it because it does make us feel better in the short term. It's understandable why we do it. It's tempting. But then when we compare ourselves to other people and we feel like we're not as good as them, that's when it really hurts us. You know, it can relieve us feeling really inadequate. There's so easily done, especially with, you know, social media these days. Comparison is just in our face. And, you know, we often will find ourselves thinking, oh, I wish I was like that. I wish I was as skinny as that person. I wish I was jacked as that person, like Mal. I wish I was as creative. I wish I was as eloquent. I wish I was as rich, as successful. I wish I was as happy. I wish I was as good as that person. So comparison is clearly not a good thing when we fall into a trap of comparing ourselves to others and we come up short. But is it all that bad? You know, is it okay to benchmark where you're at times? To sit off someone else, you know, someone who's running a similar race, just to see, you know, okay, we're level, we're okay, we're doing okay. You know, is it okay if you do it in like a controlled way? You know, if you do it so you can keep pace with someone else, so you can keep pushing yourself forward. You know, is it okay if it's more of like an acknowledgement rather than I'm not, you know, an in-depth thing? You know, is it really that bad to compare yourself in a sort of a more seemingly healthy way? You know, like we can look at other people who are maybe at the same age as us and think, okay, well, they've achieved that in life. You know, I'm sort of on par with that, or I'm keeping pace, or maybe actually I'm doing a little bit better, or maybe I need to hurry up a little bit. You know, it's just a way to kind of spur yourself on. Like maybe that's okay. You know, Mal did it in her race. She won the race in the end. You know, is it okay to benchmark your progress of someone else just to make sure that you're continuing to move forward? So is comparison really all that bad? Is it okay to benchmark your progress upon those around us? Well, I want to try and answer that question for you this morning. And as we're continuing with our series, Talking to Jesus, I want to look at a slightly kind of obscure conversation that Jesus has with one of his disciples. I like the obscure ones. Just trying to figure them out. Because I think it might actually help us answer this question. And we're going to dig into this Bible verse, okay? But if you're tuning in online this morning or in the room and, you know, you wouldn't call yourself a Christian, I just really want to encourage you to stick with me in this. Because, yes, we're going to be talking through a lot of the Bible, and you might think, actually, I don't really find that relevant to me or whatever. Actually, I still think we're going to cover some principles here based off on what we read that can, you know, really help you whether you believe in God or not. So stick with me. And I actually wanted to look at one of the same passages that Sam looked at last Sunday morning. I was a little bit nervous when he was preaching last Sunday, like, don't preach my message, please. He didn't, it's okay. But it's an interaction between Jesus and one of his disciples called Peter. And in order to kind of understand the context of the verses that I want to read, we need to go into a little bit of the background about Peter again, just so we can understand the significance of what is going on here. So we've got Peter. Peter is a guy who used to be called Simon. When he started to follow Jesus, Jesus kind of gave him this new name, and in doing so declared his destiny, right, his calling. And because it says in Matthew 16:18, Jesus says to Peter, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Wow, big deal, like really big deal. So Peter, very significant guy, but he's also the same guy who, before Jesus goes to the cross, he's like, "I'll never betray you, I'll never let you go." And Jesus is like, "Well, actually, you're going to deny me 3 times. He's like, "No way, I'm not going to do that." And then he does do that. And so then Jesus crucified, buried, rises again on the 3rd day, all good. And then, the passage we're going to look at is in John's Gospel. And John, the great thing about John's Gospel is it focuses a little bit more on the detail of what happened after Jesus rises from the dead, before he ascends to heaven. And so we're going to look at a moment in that time. And it's right at the end of the book of John. We have this really fascinating interaction between Jesus and Peter. And so, as Sam said last week, at this moment, Peter is having a little bit of a crisis of calling, because, he denied Jesus, he's feeling really bad about that, and he knows he messed up, and so he goes back to, rather than kind of continue on his calling, Peter the Rock, which church is going to be built, he just goes back to being a fisherman. He starts fishing again. And then, so we have this moment where they're out fishing, Jesus turns up, they catch a load of fish, and they sit down to have breakfast on the beach afterwards. Okay, so that's the context of the passage we're going to read. But I was just thinking, in terms of how Peter may be feeling at this point in time, it must have been a little bit awkward, right? When you might have had an argument or a disagreement with someone, and you might have hurt someone's feelings, and then you're in a social situation with them, but there's lots of other people, and you don't really have the opportunity to take them aside and say sorry and talk it out and figure out where we're at, are we okay? And so you kind of try and pretend like everything's okay, but then you also feel I don't want them to feel like I don't know that I've messed up and that I'm sorry and that I know I've hurt their feelings, that kind of awkward situation. I feel like Peter must have been like that at the time when they were fishing with Jesus, because they hadn't had a chance to kind of reconcile the fact that he had messed up and betrayed Jesus. So let's read the passage now. That's all the background. So they've had this awkward breakfast on the beach, and then Jesus finally addresses the elephant in the room. In John 21:15-17, it says this: "When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, 'Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?'" So obviously using his old name, not his new name. Peter said, "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The 3rd time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a 3rd time. "Do you love me?" he said. "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." So 3 times Jesus asked him the same question. And in doing so, he gives Peter the opportunity to right the wrongs that he committed against Jesus for every single time he denied Jesus. He forgives every single time by responding with the reinforcement of his calling as well, by saying, "Feed my sheep, take care of my lambs," as in take care of the church, take care of my people. He reiterates his calling. He's reminding him that he is still Peter, the rock on the which the church will be built. So this is this beautiful reconciliation moment. Forgiveness for Peter, but not also that, but it's reinstating his calling and getting him back on track. And then it gets a bit weird. So Jesus then goes on to say, "Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But then when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And then Jesus said to him, "Follow me." Which I think is just really surreal. So essentially Jesus tells Peter one day how he's going to die. And it's all a bit macabre. And then he's does a 180 and he's like, "Should we go for a walk?" Okay, sure, right. So remember, we've just had this amazing reconciliation moment for Peter. He's forgiven, restored, probably like pumped about the fact that his future is back on track. He's excited about his calling, relieved, maybe grateful for the restoration of the relationship with his God and his friend Jesus. And this is fantastic moment. And yeah, then it's a bit weird. And he says, yeah, you're going to die this way. That's, yeah. And then they start going for a walk. And as they are walking, John, the writer of the passage that we're reading, and the person who refers to himself in the book of John as the disciple who Jesus loves, which I really find amazing, he tags along on the walk. And so then we have this next interesting bit. And it says, when Peter saw him, John, he asked, Lord, what about him? Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. What is that to you? See, Peter, he sees his destiny of significance out right in front of him, and then he just gets a bit curious about someone else. What about John then? What does he get? Jesus says, what is it to you? None of your business, Peter. None of your concern. Actually, Jesus is saying, do not worry or concern yourself over the plan I have for John over someone else. You just focus on what I have commanded you to do. There's plenty for you to be getting on with, despite wondering what destiny I have in store for someone else. So despite this great moment in Peter's life where he has this amazing conversation with Jesus and he's back on track in his race and he's running, he still can't resist the urge to look across into someone else's lane to see what their race looks like. And it was not a negative thing. It wasn't a malicious thing. He probably was just curious and maybe concerned for the destiny of his fellow disciple. But Jesus reminds him in this sort of slightly savage but loving way that only Jesus can get the balance right on, I think. He says, what is it to you? Why are you comparing yourself to someone else? That is not a good way to live. We mentioned about GCSE and A-level results coming out this week and the weeks to come, but I really feel like this moment is a bit like when I got my GCSE or an A-level results. So I don't know. I hope I might have some friends in the room this morning, but I had to go and pick them up in an envelope with a bit of paper. I don't know if you have to do that anymore, but so you go to school, you go to the hall, you pick it up, you're so focused on this life-changing moment, like your life is literally, your destiny is in the hands of this envelope and the results are on this piece of paper, and you open it up, you take yourself off to a quiet place, you're really anxious, you don't want anyone else around you, and you open it up and you hopefully are relieved, ecstatic, pleased with the results that you've done and pleased with yourself and the effort that you've put in and the success that you've got, and you think, yeah, okay, I did this. Like, my destiny, I know where I'm going now. I'm going to do these A-levels next, or I'm going to go to this university, and it's all planned out in front of you. And then you go and see what your friends got. So you can obviously congratulate them and, say how well done, celebrate with them. But secretly, you want to know whether your good was as good as everyone else's, right? Yeah. I feel like that's a kind of what Peter might have sort of been going through. Like, yeah, he's got a great destiny, but wonder what John's got. So we can be really pleased, excited, set on our course to run our race, stay in our lane, just like Peter, but we can't resist peering across to see what other people are doing. But Jesus says to that, what is it to you? So, I think there are a few things that we can learn and deduce from this passage that I want to go through, and then I've got one thing that I want everyone to go away with and go and do going forward. The first thing I think we can deduce from this interaction is that comparison leads to presumptive errors. Comparison leads to presumptive errors. So if we go back and look at this moment in the passage, it says, when Peter saw him, John, he asked, Lord, what about him? Peering across. Jesus asked, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. Because of this, the rumor spread among the believers that this disciple, John, would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? So because of Peter's comparative questioning, it led to a lot of people presuming the wrong thing and misinformation spreading. So I think we can all read situations wrongly or interpret things incorrectly when we don't know the full story. When we're looking at someone else's situation, we just perceive it incorrectly because we're not part of their story. We don't know the full details. It's not our experience. So when we compare ourselves to others, it's not a fair comparison. It's because it's not an equal race. It's not a fair test. That's not how we would do things scientifically in an experiment. The conditions are not the same. The experiences are not the same. And ultimately, we have no idea what's going on in that other person's life that has led to their external result. Comparison makes us presume things about other people, and we will probably get it wrong. We don't know the full story. So the second thing that I think we can deduce from this passage is that you have enough to do in your own race. You have enough to do in your own race. Now, I think Jesus says, what's it to you, to Peter, because he's like, do you not remember what we just talked about? Like, look after my sheep, pastor all people, be the rock on which the church is built, all the followers of Christ. That's a lot to do. You've not got the time, the energy, the brain capacity to be concerning yourself over what other people are doing. Crack on with your own race. And then the third thing I think we can deduce from this passage is that we need to leave some concerns to Jesus. When Jesus asked Peter, what is it to you? He's also implying, I think, that, do you not trust me? Do you not think that I have the best plan for everyone? Do you not think I've got John covered? Do you really need to know the detail of my greater plan for everyone as individuals and how I'm working everything together for good and how all individual plans are being brought together as part of this overall destiny that, actually for all mankind that maybe your human brain probably can't even cope with? Do you not think that I've got this? Maybe we just need to leave some concerns, maybe a lot more concerns, to Jesus and trust him. Ultimately, Jesus wants us to run our own race, to stay in our lane, to focus on what he has called us to do and not compare ourselves to anyone else. Even benchmarking where we're at, like Mal, it's unhealthy. It might work in a race in CrossFit, but not in life. Jesus doesn't want us to be distracted by anyone else's race because comparison ultimately is not helpful. So, what's the one thing I said that we can all do going forward when we find ourselves comparing ourselves to other people? Well, think of Jesus asking you that question. What's it to you? What's it to you? When you hear that your friend got a better mark in that exam and you start questioning your own strategy, you stop and think, what's it to you? When you look at the person across the gym and you think, I wish I had abs like that. Hey, no, stop. What's it to you? When you see that everyone else in Slimming World this week has lost weight and you haven't, stop. What's it to you? When your friend gets into the top university of their choice and you didn't, what's it to you? When another couple gets engaged in church and you're still single, what's it to you? When your best friends are having a baby and you feel the pressure of your biological clock ticking, stop, what's it to you? When your work colleague gets the promotion you've been working there longer, stop, what is it to you? When your friends travel the world on their retirement, that big trip of a lifetime, and you're still stuck at home working, everybody said, what's it to you? And I'm not saying don't care about other people and what they're going through. Celebrate with people, great. Get alongside people when things are getting tough. But remember, it's not your race to compare to. We need to be getting on with our own duty, our own responsibilities, our own calling, our own destiny. Why? Because your calling, what you are put on this earth to do, is far too significant, far too great for you to be getting distracted by anyone else's race. Getting distracted is the minimum as well. Worse, we could go completely off course. We could be completely distracted by other people who are doing, and we try something else because we think we should be doing what they're doing, and actually we don't stay on the path that God wants us to. What's it to you? But look at what Jesus says after he asks that question. He says, what's it to you, Peter? You must follow me. You see, we should challenge ourselves with this question from Jesus every time we catch ourselves comparing ourselves. What's it to you? But then we also need to remind ourselves that the goal in life is Jesus, to follow him. Following him means he is guiding us in life, that we are walking the path that he has marked out for us to do. But what we need to, in order to do that, we need to know him. We need to continue developing our relationship with him. But also following him means becoming more and more like him. Asking ourselves, what would he do? Jesus living in you is the benchmark, if you need one. If you're gonna benchmark yourself off someone's progress, look at your progress to becoming more and more like Jesus. Ask yourself, how can I be more like him? How can I get closer to him? How can I develop the characteristics that Jesus has? How can I be more compassionate? How can I be more generous, more loving, more joyful? How can I have more peace? How can I be more like Jesus? Ask yourself, what is it to you? What other people are doing? And then tell yourself, follow Jesus. See, being careful not to fall into the trap of comparison is not just important because it's a poor coping strategy for all of us and it will hurt us in the end. But it can be worse than that. It could stop us ultimately from achieving our full potential. This isn't just important for us as individuals, but it's important for the world around us. Your world needs you to be everything you are meant to be. There are people out there in your future who are waiting for you to fulfill your potential, who are waiting for you to step into everything God has for you. And Jesus has called you to something that no one else can do, that is for you. You were born in this time, in this place, in this season, for such a time as this, for a reason. You have greatness in you, great things to achieve, significant things to do. You do not have the time, the energy, the headspace to worry about what other people are doing better or worse than you. You need to run your race. Run towards Jesus and all that he has for you. Not what he has for the person next to you, that's different. Trust that Jesus has a plan for you, that it is different to that other person, and that his timing is different for you compared to them. Well, not compared to them, but his timing is not always what you expect. So remember, ask yourself, when you find yourself even just wanting to benchmark to see what other people are doing, what's it to you? Follow Jesus.